Connor Geary, and this is my hazard case presentation on the blizzard of 1993, nicknamed the U.S. Storm of the Century. So what was the Storm of the Century? The Storm of the Century was a 1993 blizzard that spanned from March 12th to 14th, 1993, spreading from the deep south up towards the east coast. It covered 550,000 square miles. It also had a central pressure typically found in Category 3 hurricanes, up to 975 millibars of pressure. This spawned tornadoes, coastal flooding, and damaging snow in extreme cold conditions. It ranked on the extreme or Category 5 scale of the Regional Snowfall Index in the Northeast, Southeast, and Ohio Valley. So what was the human impact of the 1993 blizzard? This storm had a major impact on humans, lasting from days to even months or years. In total, there were $5.5 billion in damages stemming from the storm. This ranked second most costly U.S. winter storm out of the 341 plus storms, causing at least $1 billion in damage since 1980. The storm closed the interstate highways from Atlanta to New England and made it difficult for any drivers to travel. The National Guard was deployed in many states, and there were also enforced curfews and many declared states of emergency. In total, the storm affected around 120 million people, killing 270 people. There were also many rescue operations as the U.S. Coast Guard rescued 160 at sea, and mountain workers rescued hundreds of hikers in the mountains. In the top left, here's a picture of damage from flooding and coastal winds in Florida. On the bottom left, roads in Asheville, North Carolina were hard to navigate without four-wheel drive. In the top right, hikers were rescued in Knoxville, Tennessee by a helicopter. On the bottom right, a driver tries to drive in the Atlanta highway system that was shut down. The storm had a big impact on the natural environment and landscape of all the states in its path as well, including most notably causing salt spray from the ocean that was carried inland by winds and deposited onto all exposed surfaces. Then, light rain fell and saturated the salt layer, making it electronically conductive. Sand from the roads that were treated snow also ran off into rivers and streams, settling to the bottom. This sealed off breeding grounds for fish and posed issues for vegetation such as sugar maple trees and white pines. The heavy, wet snow also caved the roof of some chicken houses and killed them, sadly, making it tough for farmers to keep their livestock safe and fed in some cases due to the cold temperatures and plentiful snow. The storm had an equivalent volume of water of 44 million acre-feet. This led to rivers such as the Cape Fear River in Wilmington, North Carolina, flooding, as well as other parts of rivers in parts of the country. In this picture, you can see that storm surges were as high as 12 feet in Pine Island and 11 feet up towards the Panhandle in Florida, causing major destruction and flooding throughout the state. All in all, effects of the storm were mostly regional, but depending on the environment, the mountains and northeastern areas tended to see large amounts of snow and strong winds, while the inland and coastal south saw more tornadoes, flooding, and light snow, in addition to wind. So what caused the 1993 blizzard? Well, the storm first developed when a marine tropical air mass combined with a continental polar air mass to form a low-pressure system. The storm began on March 12th over the Gulf of Mexico and intensified quickly as it moved to inland Florida. It then transitioned into a powerful winter storm that impacted most of the East Coast before moving offshore on March 14th. Another important cause in forming the storm was El Niño, as El Niño led to wetter patterns during the U.S. winter of 1993 and allowed more storms and precipitation to develop compared to normal times. As you can see from this contour map, the low-pressure system began in the Gulf, with the storm shortly forming a squall line and becoming a derecho. The derecho brought tornadoes to the Panhandle. You can also see that as the days went on, there was a steeper pressure gradient that led to faster wind. The wind obviously moved from high to low pressures up the East Coast, which allowed the storm to stay strong. On the map, the snowflake marks alongside the temperature indicators show that the areas around 32 degrees Fahrenheit had snow for the most part. So what kinds of impact did the storm have on people and society? Well, it arguably affected service workers the most. Many still had to go into their jobs, even if the roads were closed or it was tough to travel, exposing them to many dangers. The New York Times found that 3,000 sanitation department workers on duty in New York City, and that snowplows were booked up before the snow even began. Taxi drivers had to drive on slippery roads, and many even slid out. Essential workers such as nurses, including one in Nashville, North Carolina, had to ski to make it to work because driving conditions were so bad. Grocery stores were also overwhelmed, as shelves depleted due to rising demand before the storm in many places. Students and faculty were also affected, as many were stuck at home for 2 weeks in the areas such as Philadelphia and western North Carolina, since schools were closed. One of the greatest impacts was technology. If not for NOAA's National Weather Service's newly developed forecasting abilities, damage and deaths could have been even larger. This system gave credence to the new weather systems and showed their importance in helping people prep for disasters. When all was said and done, the South experienced more effects than the North because they were not prepared to deal with the damages that would come with the snow due to lack of machinery and lower budgets compared to the North, since the South typically doesn't see storms this large. So at this point, you may be wondering how a storm like this relates to our sphere modules. Well, it does indeed, as the atmosphere and hydrosphere interacted to form this blizzard. So the atmosphere, it allowed for a low-pressure system to form, causing the air to rise since the air was lighter than the surrounding air masses. This made the water vapor condense and then freeze into the clouds. In the hydrosphere, the water cycle was a major force as precipitation fell or ran off into the bodies of water, such as oceans or lakes, to then be evaporated into water vapor, condensing as it rose. A blizzard was possible because the clouds were freezing and the atmosphere was freezing, meaning that ice crystals could form and then precipitate as snow in much of the storm's path. This shows how these two cycles interact. There were also some additional impacts I found, specifically to the biosphere. Due to the damaged trees and plants throughout the storm's path, excess carbon dioxide released and negatively impacted the surroundings, possibly leading to more making it into the atmosphere. Continuing at that point, additional carbon dioxide in the atmosphere could relate to Arctic amplification, which is a positive feedback loop since it warms the planet. This feedback loop is where the Arctic ice slowly declines due to increased temperatures, and the sunlight that would have reflected off the ice is instead absorbed by the ocean water, warming the ocean surface and melting more ice. When I read more about this by National Geographic, they had an article that said, when the atmosphere becomes warmer, it leads to more moisture in the air that can fall as precipitation, causing more frequent and intense storms. Rising ocean temperatures also lead to there being more energy and moisture available to increase intensity and amplify a storm's severity. Some additional facts about the storm were that there were 2 to 3 inches per hour at the height of the storm. Snowfall totals reached 2 feet in the Catskills and 2 feet in the Appalachians, with Mount LeConte, Tennessee reaching 56 inches and Mount Mitchell, North Carolina reaching 50 inches and 14-foot drifts. Temperatures had a low of 20 below in western North Carolina and 4 below in Rochester, New York. There were 44 deaths from severe weather in Florida, which included 15 tornadoes and large storm surges. 15 stations on the East Coast reported 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts or higher, and Mount Washington, New Hampshire even measured 144-mile-per-hour gusts. Additionally, it rained 18 inches in Birmingham, Alabama. Since North Carolina was heavily impacted by the storm, I wanted to put an additional focus on its impacts on Asheville, which is a popular town in North Carolina. It had record low barometric pressures and record high winds. 18 inches fell at Asheville Regional Airport, and there were 12 deaths in the region. This forecast was very wrong by Asheville, as they only predicted 3 to 8 inches. The impacts were so large in Asheville that many trees fell, grocery stores were bare, and water was needed to be trucked around North Carolina and South Carolina to get to those residents. It took days to remove the snow from the roads and streets, and the snow that was removed was dumped into the French Broad River. Just as in Philadelphia, schools ended up being closed for 2 weeks due to the harsh conditions, and roads that were only open were four-wheel accessible only. Here were the many sources I used to find the facts, causes, and impacts of the storm. Thank you guys for watching.